Over the past decade, New Jersey has averaged nearly 800 motor vehicle and pedestrian fatalities per year. Friends, family, loved ones here one moment and gone the next. There are hundreds of roadside memorials set up in tribute to these lives lost, scattered throughout the state. But what are the stories behind these memorials that we drive past every day? Why are we compelled to build them? And could what I learn impact how I've dealt with loss in my own life? Roadside memorials come in all shapes and sizes. Some are small and understated, while others are large and highly personalized. Many are meticulously maintained over the years, and others, like memories, slowly fade over time. But it's the sheer number of roadside memorials that hasn't escaped Mark Moran and Mark Skirman, the publishers of Weird New Jersey magazine.
Roadside memorials is a relatively recent phenomenon. We started seeing them maybe 25 years ago. I think the first one I recall seeing was the one for the state trooper who was killed on Route 78. I think it was during a traffic stop. It's an official tribute to him. And then we started seeing more and more unofficial ones that I guess families and loved ones would put up markers at the side of the road, be they crosses or wreaths or things like that. And they were all pretty temporary.
There are a lot that we see on the road, although it just passes by you in a blink of a second because you're not really looking for them. But I think, with more and more of these accidents happening on the roads, I mean, you tend to see more and more of these things pop up just because you have a larger population driving.
They all tell a story. It's just that we as passersby don't necessarily know what that story is. We have to assume it's a tragic story because we have to assume the person died at this very location. So you can understand the grief of their loved ones wanting to come out and pay tribute.
When I took the road to track down some of these stories, I came across a memorial dedicated to Maggie Palalonis. It's a very personal tribute full of photos taken by her close friend, Nicole Balea.
She was always smiling. She was always the life of the party. She was adventurous. She would take us on these crazy trail rides and we would wound up in the middle of nowhere. So that was always good. 13 Child Jeep Club, which is her Jeep Club she was with, they actually had the cross made. And then my husband and I actually bought the placard here with her name and everything on it. So it's a bunch of different people. Her family comes up here. A bunch of Jeep people come up here all the time. So usually we always get these ducks when they leave them on the Jeeps. So usually when I come up, if I have extra, I just leave them up here for her. This is when she just had gotten her new light stick put on her Jeep. So she was all excited. So it's, for me, I feel like it's helped me personally because I miss her, I do. It's, she was like one of my kids. It makes her be real. Like, even though she's not really here, you can see these memories. You can travel back into your pictures and be like, oh, I remember that day. I remember exactly what we were doing that day.
It's believed Maggie fell asleep while driving on a dark stretch of Route 70 in the early morning hours of January 23rd of 2021. Maggie was newly engaged. It's hard to drive away from a memorial like Maggie's and not feel affected in some way. It's a feeling that Vinnie Favali of Middletown knows all too well.
I am super sensitive to whenever I see a roadside memorial.
It was 2003 when driving past a memorial to a local high school student named DJ Wheeler made him reflect on the passing of two of his brothers when he was a teenager.
It's beautiful what they had done. They had our high school portrait photo of DJ, so handsome, and flowers all around it. And I'm like, wow, it was powerful and moving. And I remember thinking, this roadside memorial is even more powerful than a cemetery, and it's so public, and it just really, it grabs you by the lapels and says, life is short. Life is short. You're driving your son to soccer practice and you think everything is great, but this is a reminder to be careful, to whatever you want to make of it. It's a reminder of how fragile and tragic life could be.
Vinny, a TV network executive who's worked alongside of Howard Stern and David Letterman, was so moved by the experience that he wrote a song, which eventually became an off-Broadway play about how fleeting and tragic life can be.
We ended up doing a big run off Broadway, and I was so proud to have the family, DJ's family, there with us. And they were so proud to be. It was just wonderful. We had become one.
And then that one turned full circle.
We found ourselves riding down Middletown Lincroft Road again, as we often do, because this is where we live. We were running some errands that day, and we were like, oh, we're coming, the tree is getting closer. You know, the thing that, this had now been like 7 years after the accident, and my wife, Debbie, she goes, oh my God, look. And I look up and I see the family had put the Hereafter, we had t-shirts with the logo made up, and they had stapled it to the tree. And it was the emotions, even now thinking about it, like, I had nothing to do with this. It wasn't, it wasn't my family. We've since become good friends, but it was something that I was grieving from a distance for them. And now suddenly I'm on the tree.
My next stop brought me to Tinton Falls and the memorial of newlyweds Angel and Daniela Acevedo.
I knew they were made for each other. They were a half and a half, and once they got together, they became a complete couple and complemented each other, and they were in love with each other.
Happy birthday to you.
Aww. So that was her mother's shawl.
Angel's cousin Eric Marrero created the memorial and says Angel was much more than your typical cousin.
I looked up to Angel. He was my best friend. Me and him would talk on a daily basis after work, during the week. And also when I was 19, my father passed away, so Angel kind of filled the void and with things in that nature of giving me advice and helping me out and things like that.
The couple were traveling to visit loved ones when they were struck by an off-duty police officer who lost control of his truck. He was later charged.
I was just thinking of ways that I could keep their spirits alive and let them know that we're always still thinking of them, and it allowed me to let me know that hopefully they're in a better place and that they're not suffering and that they're continuing to look down on us and make sure that they take care of our family and just give us the strength that we need to continue moving on with our lives.
The more roadside memorials I drive by, the more they feel like silent screams from the deceased loved ones, saying, this person was here, look, they existed, they meant something. This can't be it, it's unfair, and it can't possibly be over. But in the end, is anybody listening? And does it help in the grieving process?
We're just a society, we're just death phobic, I think.
Lynn Snyder is the executive director at the Common Ground Grief Center in Manasquan, New Jersey.
Whatever way that you can put into motion to make meaning of the loss, and that meaning making, I think, comes over time. And some people will never accept that loss and won't make any meaning out of it, but most people will.
She adds that grief therapy, particularly in a group setting, results in her clients feeling less isolated.
I see families come in here broken. When a death happens, you have a lot of people, family, friends surrounding those that have gone through the loss. And then all of a sudden, the day after the funeral services are over, there's that profound silence. And life goes on for everybody else except the grievers. Especially with parents, because parents are only parent now is having to take care of their other children, and their own grief gets put on the back burner.
There's a camaraderie with a group when you do get into a group counseling situation.
Donna Sotaro lost her son, New Jersey State Trooper Mark Castellano, in a tragic roadside accident in 2010.
The feelings are right under the surface, and I think you have to learn to live with them. And I think that grief counseling gives you the tools to help you live with them. I try to go during the anniversary of his accident, which is June 6th. I definitely try to go in the summer. His birthday is the July 15th.
Mark was responding to a report of a man with a gun in Howell Township when he was struck by a passing vehicle.
I think it was the discipline, and I think he looked up to people with uniform and felt that that's the kind of job that he wanted to do, help people and be looked up to, and I just think that it appealed to him.
A few days after she laid her son to rest, a roadside memorial for Mark appeared at the scene of his accident.
The white post was just appeared. To this day, I don't personally know who erected it, but it was lovely. From that point, then I asked my husband to make the railroad ties on the bottom, and then I painted them gold, and we keep flowers in there. And that's become a very sacred spot for me. I really, really in my heart feel that his last real breath as a human was in the area of the accident. And I just feel like a spirit there.
If there's one thing most of these roadside memorials have in common, it's the religious symbols of Christianity left there.
But yeah, I think that when it comes to any memorial, it's a grasping at eternity. We have an idea, we have an instinct that we should live on. We never think that someone we love is going to die, especially suddenly. That's something that always happens to other people.
But does it also symbolize a culture unprepared or seemingly unable to deal with death and loss? Father Todd Carter is the head pastor at Holy Innocents Church in Neptune, New Jersey.
I think that as our culture becomes more secular, as in less religious, it becomes less equipped to deal with the questions of life and death. Because it's like the world can only teach us how to be satisfied in a worldly sense. It doesn't teach us how to be satisfied in a holy religious sense. There's something more to this life than just acquiring and accomplishing things and any of those other needs all people go for, because that's what human beings do. We have a spiritual need that's real. And the more those are put aside, the more devastated people are, and the more they can't think about it. Different people. We live in a free country. People can come to different conclusions. But if someone comes to no conclusion, has no idea why things ultimately happen, then they can't really deal with death.
But why is there literally no other religions represented at any of these roadside memorials that I've now visited?
You don't necessarily see a lot of those different symbols and relics that, with the Baptist tradition.
Dr. Samaj Van Zant is a pastor at the Second Baptist Church in Asbury Park, New Jersey.
A part of that is this notion of idolatry. We don't do statues of saints, and we don't do different, lighting candles to our foreparents and things. We acknowledge them, but God does not want us to have any other thing that even might tempt us to worship or admire or reverence it more than we reverence God. I can confidently say the same thing for our Jewish brothers and sisters, same thing for our Muslim brothers and sisters, that idolatry is something that is strictly forbidden. We have a different understanding of who God is, but nothing is to be worshiped or admired or given deference or reverence more than God.
While their faiths differ in terms of their use of religious symbols and idolatry, the priest and the pastor do share a theory of Western culture and our difficulties in dealing with loss.
In Africa, I had the most amazing, genuine, authentic worship experience during those 7 days that I've had anywhere else in the world. And those people had the least of amount of things. And because they had the least amount of things, they had a greater trust in God. And so when it comes to loss, there's no thing that we can do, because things do not equip us to deal with the loss, the pain, the hurt that loss brings in our lives. Only God can do that.
I'm going to need to dry it to see it.
In addition to honoring and remembering their loved one, the religious imagery in Tyler Hornick's roadside memorial represents a call for justice.
This is a way to go ahead and remind people that we are still fighting for Tyler.
Frank Hornick is Tyler's father.
These are all the documents that support the categorization of the information, the data, the evidence, and then the sequencing of that information into a document that went to the Attorney General. So about 10:24 p.m. Friday night, August 14th, 2015, the police came to the door and they informed us that Tyler was struck and killed by a car on Route 9.
Their home also serves as a memorial to Tyler and a steady reminder of the injustice the family still feels over 7 years later.
So this is the timeline from 2 weeks prior to Tyler being struck by the car, all the way out to August 14th of 2020.
It's the second time the driver had struck and killed a pedestrian on that same stretch of road.
Well, what good could really come out of this? And I think what good could really come out of this is the driver, who continues to behave very badly on the roadways and represents a threat, should be behind bars. That's what the cross represents for us. And the second thing that it represents is the fact that maybe if she does get charged and does go to prison, it will shed the light on why it took us 7+ years. Maybe it'll happen in 8 or 9, I don't know. But that's the hope that we have, and that's why the cross is there for us.
Which leads me, well, to me.
We're going to do some roadside memorials. Well, I'm going to do a roadside memorial.
You see, I lost my older brother to a car accident when I was 9 years old. Billy was 18.
Everybody said one thing that kind of led me to do this, so that's what we're doing.
I didn't know much about the circumstances behind it, but a little research led me to the location. So today, I'll place a roadside memorial of my own at the site of his accident that happened so many years ago. Everybody I spoke to seemed to have their own reasons for putting up a memorial, whether it was to ease the hurt and to heal, to honor and remember, or as a call to action and justice. And for me, I guess I have my own reasons as well.
I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know if it's going to be a sense of closure. I don't know that I even need closure, but it's been a long time coming. I think it looks great.
For the sake of the story, I wish I could say this had some profound impact or gave me an overwhelming sense of closure, but it hasn't. Maybe it's just an Irish Catholic thing that doesn't allow me to recognize it, but that's not to say that placing something there to honor my brother didn't feel good in some way, because it did. And what this whole process has done was to allow me to better understand and acknowledge the human stories behind these memorials that I'd casually drive past every day. On the roadways of New Jersey, Brian Johnston for the USA Today Network.